Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
We'd love to pick a fascinating topic and really get into it.
Yeah, and today's topic is definitely fascinating.
We're talking about learning theory and behavior modification. How
Yeah.
do we learn things? How do we unlearn things?
Right, and how do those processes, work?
Yeah, and how do they apply in all different areas of life, right?
Exactly. We're talking education, therapy, advertising.
And more. And we have a fantastic stack of sources.
Oh, yeah, a really great historical overview.
With some really interesting studies and experiments, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Some of these are so out there, I can't wait to dig in.
Well, let's jump right in then.
Okay, so to start things off, we're talking about learning,
And to understand learning theory, you have to start with the basics.
like Pavlov.
Exactly. Pavlov and his dogs.
The bells, the food, the drool.
Right. It's one of the most famous experiments in psychology.
But what did it actually show us about learning?
Well, Pavlov showed us that we can learn to associate a neutral stimulus, like a bell, with a stimulus that naturally causes a response, like food. So you hear the bell, you start thinking about food.
And if you're a dog, you start drooling.
It's like me when I hear the doorbell.
Oh, yeah?
I instantly think pizza.
Because you've learned to associate the doorbell with the pizza delivery guy.
Exactly. It's classical conditioning in action.
And it's not just about physical reactions like drooling.
It can be any kind of response.
We'll learn to associate all sorts of things with each other.
like smells and emotions or sounds and memories.
Exactly. It's how we make sense of the world around us.
But it's not just for dogs, right?
Right.
This applies to humans, too.
Absolutely. Classical conditioning is a fundamental principle of learning across species.
I remember reading about that study where people were shown a specific image.
Oh, yeah?
Like a red circle or something.
Yeah.
And they heard a tone at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And eventually just hearing the tone made them see the image in their mind, even though it wasn't actually there.
That's a great example of how we can learn to form perceptual associations.
It's amazing how powerful those associations can be.
And it gets even more interesting when you think about things like backward conditioning.
Backward conditioning, what's that?
Well, basically flipping the order of the stimuli.
Like instead of bell, then food, it's food, then bell.
Right. And you know what? This is used all the time in advertising.
Really?
Absolutely. Think about those commercials where you see a beautiful beach scene.
Oh, yeah, and then they show you like a beer or a car or something.
Exactly. They're trying to get you to associate those products with feelings of relaxation and happiness.
Ooh, sneaky, sneaky.
It's all about tapping into our subconscious associations.
So Pavlov's work was really groundbreaking, huh?
It was, but, it's been reinterpreted over the years.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, originally it was thought to be purely physiological, reflex.
Okay.
But now we understand it's more about learning relationships between stimuli.
So it's not just a mindless response.
Right. It's about learning and making predictions about the world.
Which brings us to another key figure in learning theory,
John B. Watson.
the behaviorism guy.
That's right. Watson was all about observable behavior.
He wasn't interested in all that introspection stuff.
Nope. He wanted to focus on what you could actually see and measure.
Which makes sense, I guess, if you want to make psychology a more scientific discipline.
Exactly. And, Watson was such a believer in the power of behaviorism that he actually left academia to work in advertising.
Really? That's interesting.
He was convinced that these principles could be used to understand and influence consumer behavior.
Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
And he certainly pushed the boundaries with his research.
Yeah, his little Albert experiment was pretty controversial.
It was, but it also demonstrated how powerful classical conditioning can be in humans.
It's amazing how quickly that little boy learned to fear furry animals.
Just by associating them with a loud, scary noise.
Yeah, it's pretty unnerving to think about.
It definitely raises some ethical concerns about the limits of what's acceptable in the name of science.
For sure, but even with the ethical dilemmas, Watson's work had a huge impact on the field.
Yeah, he shifted the focus away from subjective experiences and towards observable behavior.
Which paved the way for more testable and measurable approaches to understanding learning.
Absolutely. That's a good segue to our next pioneer, Edward Thorndike.
Thorndike, who was he again?
He was all about the impact of consequences on behavior.
Like rewards and punishments.
Exactly. He coined the term law of effect.
Which basically means that behaviors followed by rewards are more likely to be repeated.
And behaviors followed by punishments are less likely.
Pretty straightforward.
Seems like common sense now. But it was a big deal back then.
So Thorndike was basically saying that we learn through trial and error.
Right. He used puzzle boxes and mazes to study how animals learn.
And he observed that they got better at solving the puzzles over time.
by repeating actions that led to rewards and avoiding actions that led to punishments.
So it's like the classic carrot and stick approach.
Exactly. Reward the good, punish the bad.
And this became the foundation for operant conditioning, right?
That's right. Skinner built upon Thorndike's work and really systematized it.
But Thorndike wasn't just interested in animals, was he?
No, he also applied his ideas to education.
He was a big believer in repetition and practice.
That's right. He thought it was essential for learning.
Even what some might call drill and kill.
Exactly. He believed that repetition strengthened the connections between stimuli and responses.
But wasn't everyone on board with that approach?
No, not everyone. William James, for example.
Oh, yeah, the famous philosopher and psychologist.
He was more interested in fostering a love of learning than drilling facts into people's heads.
I can see both sides of the argument, I guess.
It's a balance, right, between repetition and understanding.
And then there is Edward Tolman.
Ah, yes. Tolman, he challenged the idea that learning was purely about stimulus-response associations.
He thought there was more to it than that.
Right. He argued that animals and humans are capable of more complex mental processes.
He called it purposive behaviorism.
That's right. He believed that we're not just mindlessly responding to rewards and punishments, but we're actively creating cognitive maps of our environment.
So we're not just robots.
No, we're using our brains to learn and make decisions.
That's a pretty big departure from the purely behavioral view.
It was, and it really helped to bridge the gap between behaviorism and cognitive psychology.
So we've gone from drilling dogs to rats with mental maps.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey so far.
And we're just getting started.
Next time, we'll delve into the world of B.F. Skinner and his ideas about operant conditioning.
Skinner was a fascinating and controversial figure.
Oh yeah, he had some really radical ideas about how we can shape behavior.
And he wasn't afraid to apply those ideas to all sorts of things.
From education to therapy to even designing a utopian society.
I can't wait to dig into that.
Neither. It's going to be good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into learning theory. Last time we left off with the promise of B.F. Skinner.
Oh yeah, Skinner, a big name in the field.
So he took those ideas about rewards and punishments and really ran with them.
He took Thorndike's law of effect and turned it into operant conditioning.
Okay, so remind me again, operant conditioning. What is that exactly?
It's all about how behaviors are shaped by their consequences.
Like if you do something good, you get rewarded.
Exactly. And if you do something bad, you get punished.
Sounds simple enough.
Well, it's the basic principle, but Skinner really dug deep into the nuances.
Okay, so what kind of nuances are we talking about?
Well, one of his key contributions was his work on reinforcement schedules.
Reinforcement schedules, what are those?
So it's not just about whether you reward or punish a behavior, it's also about when and how often you do it.
Okay, I'm listening.
So imagine you're training a dog to sit.
Okay.
If you give the dog a treat every single time they sit, that's continuous reinforcement.
Makes sense.
The dog learns the behavior quickly, but if you suddenly stop giving treats, they'll also stop sitting pretty quickly.
Because the reward is gone.
Exactly. The behavior is extinguished.
So is there a way to make the behavior more long-lasting?
That's where variable reinforcement comes in.
Variable reinforcement. Okay.
Instead of rewarding the behavior every time, you only reward it sometimes.
Interesting.
And you might even do it on an unpredictable schedule.
Oh, so the dog never knows when they're going to get a treat.
Right, and that makes the behavior much more resistant to extinction.
Because they keep hoping they'll get rewarded.
Exactly.
That's kind of devious.
Well, it's just how learning works. And, this applies to humans, too.
Oh, I bet it does.
Think about all those times you check your phone for notifications.
Oh, yeah, you don't get a notification every time, but those occasional likes and comments that keep you coming back for more.
Exactly. It's variable reinforcement in action.
It's like those slot machines. People keep pulling the lever even though they know they're probably going to lose.
Because those occasional wins are so powerful.
It's like our brains are wired for this kind of learning.
It seems that way.
So Skinner was really fascinated by this idea of shaping behavior, wasn't he?
He believed that you could use operant conditioning to shape just about any behavior.
And he even went so far as to envision a utopian society based on these principles.
Oh yeah, Walden too.
Walden too. What was that all about?
It was Skinner's vision of a perfect society where everyone's behavior is carefully controlled through positive reinforcement.
That sounds a little creepy.
Well, it was a thought experiment more than anything else.
So what was life like in Walden too?
There was no competition, no traditional family structures, and everyone contributed to the community.
And everything was designed to reinforce desired behaviors.
Exactly.
I don't know if I could live in a place like that.
It definitely raises some questions about, Individual freedom versus societal control.
For sure. But it's an interesting thought experiment.
It is. It makes you think about the power of our environment to shape who we are.
But let's move on from utopian societies for now and talk about how Skinner's ideas have been applied in more practical settings.
Like therapy.
Right. What kind of therapies are based on operant conditioning?
Well, one example is the use of token economies.
Token economies, what are those?
It's a system where people earn tokens for exhibiting desired behaviors.
Like gold stars for good behavior.
Kind of, and then those tokens can be exchanged for privileges or rewards.
So it's like a positive reinforcement system.
Exactly.
Where has this been used?
It's been used in classrooms, psychiatric hospitals, even prisons.
I can see how that could be effective.
It can be, especially in environments where there's a need for structure and clear consequences.
But I imagine there are also ethical considerations.
Of course, you have to be careful not to manipulate people or create unintended negative consequences.
Right, it's a powerful tool that needs to be used responsibly.
Absolutely.
The Skinner's work has had a huge impact on our understanding of learning and behavior.
But it's not the whole story.
Right, as the field evolved, researchers started to realize that there's more to it than just external rewards and punishments.
Our thoughts and feelings also play a crucial role.
It's not just about what we do, it's also about what we think and believe.
Exactly. And that led to a shift from behaviorism to what we now call cognitive behavior modification.
Cognitive behavior modification. So it's about taking into account the cognitive aspects of behavior.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our thoughts and beliefs can influence our emotions and behaviors just as much as external factors.
And this opened up a whole new avenue for understanding and changing human behavior.
It did. It was a major turning point in the field.
Last time we were talking about that shift, from just looking at behaviors to considering thoughts and feelings too.
Right. Recognizing that what we think and believe can really impact how we act.
And that it's not always about external rewards and punishments.
Yeah, it's like we have this whole internal world that's influencing our behavior.
Exactly. And one of the pioneers of this idea was Albert Ellis, right?
Yeah. Ellis and his rational emotive behavior therapy, or REBT for short.
REBT. So what's that all about?
Well, it's all about identifying and challenging irrational beliefs.
Irrational beliefs, like what are we talking about here?
Well, they're these rigid and often unrealistic demands we put on ourselves or the world.
Okay, give me an example.
Like the belief that you must be loved and approved of by everyone.
Ooh, yeah, I think we've all felt that pressure.
Or the belief that you have to be perfect in everything you do.
Or that life should always be fair.
Exactly. These kinds of beliefs can really lead to a lot of emotional distress.
Because they're not really based in reality.
Right. And when our beliefs don't match up with reality, it creates this disconnect.
And that can lead to anxiety, depression, anger, all sorts of negative emotions.
Those emotions can then drive unhealthy behaviors.
So it's like a chain reaction.
It is the irrational belief leads to the negative emotion, which then leads to the problematic behavior.
And RBT is about breaking that chain.
Exactly. By helping people identify, challenge, and change those irrational beliefs.
So it's like rewiring the faulty circuits in your brain.
You could say that it's about giving people the tools to think more rationally and flexibly.
But I imagine those irrational beliefs can be pretty stubborn sometimes.
Oh, they can be. They're often deeply ingrained.
So how did Ellis help people overcome those beliefs?
Well, he was known for his very direct approach.
Direct, how so?
He would actively challenge his clients' beliefs, encouraging them to debate them and find evidence to support or refute them.
So it wasn't a very gentle kind of therapy.
No, it was about shaking people out of their comfort zones and helping them to see the flaws in their thinking.
Wow. Sounds intense.
It could be, but it was also very effective for many people.
So it's about more than just feeling better. It's about learning to think differently.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to be their own therapists.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, and it really speaks to the power of our thoughts to shape our reality.
Okay, so we've talked about Ellis and RBT. Are there other techniques that have emerged from this cognitive behavioral perspective?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of different tools in the toolbox.
Like what?
Well, one example is stress inoculation training.
Stress inoculation training. That sounds interesting.
It was developed by Donald Meichenbaum, and it's all about helping people cope with stressful situations.
So it's like giving your mind a workout.
Kind of. It's about building up your resilience so you can handle challenges better.
I like that.
So there are three main phases to stress inoculation training.
Okay, what's the first phase?
The first phase is all about conceptualization.
Conceptualization. What does that mean?
It's about understanding your own stress response.
Like recognizing the physical and emotional symptoms.
Exactly, and identifying the thoughts that often accompany those symptoms.
So it's about becoming more aware of how you react to stress.
Right, and once you understand your stress response, you can start to develop coping skills.
And that's the second phase.
Exactly. Skills acquisition and rehearsal.
So this is where you learn things like relaxation techniques or problem-solving strategies.
Right, and you practice those skills so you're ready to use them when you need them.
It's like building up your mental arsenal.
Exactly. And then the third phase is all about application.
Application, so putting those skills into practice in real life.
Right, gradually exposing yourself to stressful situations and using your coping skills to manage your anxiety.
It sounds like a very practical and empowering approach.
It is. It's about giving people the tools to take control of their stress response.
And that brings us to another concept I wanted to touch on: Rachman's three systems model.
Ah, yes, a very insightful model.
So what's this model all about?
Well, it's about understanding anxiety as a complex interplay between three systems.
Okay, three systems, what are they?
Physiological responses, behavioral patterns, and subjective experiences.
So it's not just a feeling in your head.
Right, it's also happening in your body, and it's
Oh.
influencing how you behave.
Okay, so give me an example.
Well, someone with social anxiety might experience physical symptoms like sweating or a racing heart,
Right, I can see that.
and they might avoid social situations or engage in safety behaviors like staying quiet or avoiding eye contact.
And all of this is fueled by their thoughts and beliefs about social situations.
Exactly, it's all interconnected.
So it's a reminder that we're complex beings.
We are, and to understand and change our behavior, we need to consider all of these factors.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
No, it's about finding what works best for each individual.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have from Pavlov's dogs to Skinner's boxes to the intricacies of the human mind.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and it really highlights the incredible capacity we have to learn and change.
And before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
All right.
Given all that we've learned about the power of conditioning, both classical and operant, how much of your own behavior do you think has been shaped by experiences you're not even aware of?
It's a fascinating question to ponder.
It is, and it speaks to the power we have to understand these forces and use them for good.
Absolutely, knowledge is power.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into learning theory.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
As always, and to our listeners, thanks for joining us.
We hope you learned something new.
And that you'll keep those brains firing.
Until next time.